What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and our 2023 college football predictions continue for the 2023 college football season. Up next are the Minnesota Golden Gophers, a team coming off a really good season last year. They went 9-4 overall in 2022. They were contenders for the Big Ten, championship perhaps, maybe for the Big Ten West as well, but did not end up making it to the Big Ten championship. I thought this was a team that was going to make it to the Big Ten championship, but it came down to, the regular season matchup with Purdue and Minnesota. So 9-4 overall last year in 2022 for Minnesota. My thoughts on this team for 2023. I think they're still going to be pretty good. I know they lose a lot of talent from last year's team, but I think this is still a really good quality Minnesota team. Maybe not the same team as last year, but they're going to have a really good offense like they always do. I think they're going to want to run the football a lot this year. And defensively is kind of what I'm concerned about for the Golden Gophers heading into this year. So you look at the schedule, they do play Eastern Michigan, North Carolina, and Louisiana in the non-conference. They get North Carolina on the road. That will be a tough one there in the non-conference, and that kind of makes the non-conference schedule a little bit tougher for Minnesota this year. And you look at their opponents outside of the Big Ten West, they'll play Michigan at home, Michigan State at home, and also they'll play Ohio State on the road on November 18th. So very tough draw there outside of the Big Ten West with Michigan and Ohio State especially. Michigan State is a home game. I'm not really too concerned about that game anymore if I'm a Minnesota fan, because Michigan State, I really just don't think, maybe they're not going to be all that really good without their starting quarterback. But let's go game by game now and give you an official prediction for this Minnesota team for 2023. So they start things off here with August the 31st against Nebraska here at home. This game will be on a Thursday, so you got a Big Ten matchup here in August between the Cornhuskers and the Golden Gophers. I think this is going to be a pretty good matchup between Nebraska and Minnesota. Minnesota does have home field advantage in this game. Probably the more talented team here. I think Nebraska is going to be a pretty good quality team, but maybe not a decent team. But I think this will be a pretty close game. I think Nebraska can keep this close maybe in the first half, but second half, I like the Golden Gophers here in a close one over Nebraska. And I think Minnesota starts out 1-0 with a win over Nebraska. And I also got them taking care of business against Eastern Michigan on September the 9th. So I think Minnesota starts out 2-0 with a win over Nebraska and then an easy win here over Eastern Michigan. Then they'll play North Carolina on the road here on September 16th. The Tar Heels are going to have a pretty good offense. I mean, the defense, I think, should be pretty good as well for the Tar Heels. I kind of expect a shootout here in this game. I think Minnesota wants to keep that North Carolina offense off the field. Defensively, I think this will be kind of a big concern for the Golden Gophers because North Carolina's got to have a really good offense. I think they're going to want to go fast and obviously pass the football with Drake May. This one's a tough one for me. It's a coin flip game for me, but I think North Carolina is the better overall team in this one. And I think the Tar Heels will win here in a shootout-type ball game. I like Drake May and the Tar Heels in this one over Minnesota, and I got Minnesota giving their first loss of the season on the road at North Carolina. Then they play Northwestern on the road here to open up Big Ten, or I should not say open up Big Ten play, but this will be their second Big Ten game. Northwestern's going to be a team that has a lot of question marks. It's hard to tell how good this team will be this year. This is a very hard team to predict against. I mean, obviously they were terrible last year, and I think Minnesota has the better overall roster in this game. I kind of trust the offense a little bit more for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I think the offense is going to run the football in this game, and they're going to wear down that defense of Northwestern. So with that being said, I think Minnesota gets a win over Northwestern on the road. Maybe it's close in the first half, but second half, I think the Golden Gophers will pull away and start to run out the clock a little bit there in that second half. Then Minnesota will take care of business against Louisiana on September the 30th, so that puts their record at 4-1. Then it's Michigan at home after that on October the 7th. I think that Minnesota can really keep this game close. I know Michigan's got a lot of production coming back, but I think Minnesota can keep this game close maybe for the first half. However, I think Michigan is just way too talented. I think the Wolverines are going to want to run the football in this game. I think both teams are going to want to run the football in this game and keep both offenses off the field in both of these games. So I think this will be a high-scoring game, but Michigan I just think is way too much talent on their roster. And with that being said, I think Michigan gets the win here over Minnesota and gives them their second loss of the season. So I got Minnesota losing that one to Michigan. Like I said, it will be close in the first half. I think second half the Wolverines will pull away, and I think Minnesota loses that one, and that puts their record at 4-2. They get a bye week after that Michigan game. They'll play Iowa on the road. I think that's a pretty good spot for a bye week if you're Minnesota. I think this is going to be a low-scoring type game here between the Hawkeyes and the Golden Gophers. It's not really usually a high-scoring game between these two teams, but Iowa, I'm really concerned about their offense, but I think Cade McNamara coming in is going to help that passing game just a little bit for the Hawkeyes, but I kind of expect a low-scoring type game here. I think the defense is going to keep Minnesota's offense off the field. I think the defense is what wins Iowa this game and this one, so I think this is a tough place to play as well. I mean, for Minnesota, obviously on the road at Iowa is a very tough place to play. So with that being said, I think the Hawkeyes get the win here over Minnesota and give them their third loss of the season. So that puts Minnesota's record at 4-3. Then they'll play Michigan State at home after that on October the 28th. So Michigan State, like I said, has a lot of question marks. I'm not really too concerned about this game now for Minnesota. I know I predicted Michigan State to go 9-3, but that's when they really almost lost their starting quarterback. So, yeah, Michigan State's a team that I'm kind of concerned about now heading into 2023, but I think they're still a quality team, not like a decent team perhaps, but I think Minnesota, with them playing at home in this one, I think it will be a shootout-type ball game, but I think Minnesota's running game gets things going, and I think the offense will get things going in the second half, and they run all over this Michigan State defense. So I think Minnesota wins a close one over Michigan State at home on October the 28th. That improves their record to 5-3. Then they get to the month of November. They'll play Illinois at home here on November 4th. Illinois is a team that you kind of don't want to sleep on in 2023. This is going to be a really good quality Illinois team, maybe even a contender for the Big Ten West this year, maybe behind Minnesota, maybe Iowa. I mean, the Big Ten West is obviously going to be wide open, so there's definitely going to be a lot of great teams this year in the Big Ten West. But Illinois, this game's at home for Minnesota. I think Minnesota wins this one. I think they're the better team in this one, and also home field advantage gives them the difference. So I think Minnesota wins that one at home against Illinois. That puts their record at 6-3. Then it's Purdue on the road on November 11th. This is going to be a pretty tough game here for Minnesota. It's definitely a game that can go either way. I know Purdue's got a new era coming in, new head coach and everything, but I think this is still going to be a pretty tough game. Plus, it's in the month of November. I think Purdue is better by this time. I think they can probably figure out what the coaching staff is like there for a while. But I think this will be a back-and-forth game. I think it's probably a shootout-type game here, maybe in the 30s or maybe 40s perhaps. But this game is on the road. It's a very tough place to play, coin flip-type game for me. I'm going with Purdue here to knock off Minnesota. If Minnesota is ranked in the top 25 by this point, I think you can definitely count those as an upset alert-type game. So I'm going with Purdue here to upset Minnesota. If Minnesota is ranked in the top 25, that puts their record at 6-4. Ohio State on the road after that on November 18th. So things don't get easy for Minnesota after that Purdue loss. They play Ohio State the next week on the road. I really don't see this game being all that close. I think Ohio State is way too dangerous. Plus, playing on the road is a very tough place to play. I think the Ohio State defense is way too strong as well, and they're going to keep Minnesota's offense off the field pretty much the entire day. And I think Ohio State will win this one by at least a couple scores perhaps, and I think they give Minnesota their fifth loss of the season. That puts Minnesota's record at 6-5. Then it's Wisconsin to end things out here on November 25th. Minnesota is at home in this game. I think this could very well be one of the best games, probably in the Big Ten West all year. And this is a game that probably could decide the Big Ten West, but I don't think it will decide because maybe Minnesota is not a contender for the Big Ten West by this point. But I think both of these teams are pretty even in terms of, in returning production. Defensively, I would give the advantage to Wisconsin in this one because I am concerned about Minnesota's defense heading into this year. But this is a very tough game. This is a very tough game to call. I think both offenses will be ready. Maybe this could be a defensive game, but I think this is a shootout-type ball game here between Minnesota and Wisconsin. End of the day, though, coin flip-type game for me. Minnesota is at home in this one. They have home field advantage in this one, so I'm going with the Golden Gophers here to knock off Wisconsin in the last game of the regular season here on November 25th. So I got Minnesota finishing with an overall record at 7-5 for the 2023 season. I think that's kind of a fair prediction for Minnesota. Plus, you play tough games on the road at North Carolina, Iowa, Purdue, and Ohio State. Maybe if you count Northwestern in there, but I just don't really see Northwestern being all that good. Nebraska, don't really sleep on that game. This is a team that could probably go 6-6 perhaps for Minnesota. If they went 5-7, that would just be kind of a big disappointment. I think their most likely record is probably 7-5 or 8-4, and maybe their worst likely record would be probably 5-7 or 4-8, or maybe 6-6 perhaps. But I think Minnesota finishes 2023 with a record of 7-5. Let me guys know what you think about Minnesota. What do you think their record will be in 2023? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.